Hello everyone. So congratulations, we learned about how to write a basic SQL. Okay, we know about select statement, so we can select a specific attribute based on some condition. Even if we need more than one table, we know about different type of condition, such as selection condition and join condition, by which we can connect more than one tables. All right. So now in this chapter we are going to learn few more basic technique that will make our life easier. Okay, so let's start. So we can actually use some alias for our table name. Okay, all right. So remember when we write some condition, like we write some condition, say dname equals to research. We're assuming that each of the name in the schema diagram, they are different. Okay, now now so the thing is that, for example, let me give you an example. Say employee table has d number, which name is dno, and department has a another attribute, which is d number. So they both are actually with same domain. That means department number, that also means department number, but the name is different. Okay, the name, the name we're choosing different, but the idea is that each of the name of the attribute, there, if they are in different table, they can be actually same. You can have a d number attribute in the in a different table. Okay, so this table name doesn't interfere with the this attribute name from employee table doesn't interfere with this attribute name from the department table. Okay, all right. Now what I'm trying to say is that, let me go back to one example. So when I wrote this query, okay, when I wrote this query, how actually my query compiler knows that which attribute coming from which table. Okay, so here actually the table name is different. That's why my query compiler will understand, by default my query compiler will understand automatically that dno is from employee and d number is from department. Okay, now let's see, the employee has the attribute with the same name, d number. Okay, so instead of dno, the name of the attribute is d number. This is possible because these attributes are in different table, so this is actually possible. Okay, and they both means same. All right, so if the attribute name is same, what happens? This condition will look like d number equals to d number. Okay, this condition will look like d number equals to d number, but that will actually create an ambiguity to the compiler. Our SQL compiler will not understand which attribute is coming from which table. Okay, and that is going to generate an error. All right, so in that case, what we can do, we can explicitly say that which uh, attribute is coming from which table. One way to do that, I can write the condition like that, where employee dot d number equals to dot d number. Okay, so this is one solution where employee dot d number equals to department dot d number. Okay, so this is going to solve the whole problem. So one thing is that if you have same attribute name in different table, and if you want to join them using the join condition using that attribute name, in that case we have to actually use the name of the table and use the dot operator to explicitly mentioning that which attribute is coming from which department, which attribute is coming from which table. Otherwise our query compiler will not be able to identify, okay, identify that which attribute is coming from which table. Okay, and that is going to create a ambiguity, that's a ambiguous situation for a compiler, and that is going to generate an error. Okay, all right. Now the thing is that okay, so now the thing is that each time if we want to write the table name like that, employee dot something equals to department dot something, it may look like actually a lot of writing. Okay, so another solution is that we can create a alias. We can create a alias for for table. All right, so the same example, I want to retrieve the name and address of all employee who works for research department. Okay, so what I can do when I choose a table name, I can actually give a temporary name, temporary alias for that table. For example, like employee as E, okay, department as D. When the query will be executed, only for that time being our compiler will know employee as E and department as D. In that case, whenever we have to write the table name, we can just write the alias name, okay, the temporary name. For example, d.d name means actually department.d name. d.d number equals to e.dno, it means that department.d number equals to employee.dno. Okay, here also when selecting the attribute name, okay, e.f name, e.l name, e.address, so it will also make our code more readable. We will also know much clearly where from where these attributes are coming from. Okay, so that's how we can create an alias for each table. All right, it is also possible to rename the attribute name. Okay, we can rename the attribute name within a query. So we have to remember that the scope of this name of the table here, it's actually very temporary, and the scope is only this query. So it's just a temporary name, and this name will exist only when we are going to execute the query, and within this query scope of query, this table the name will exist. Okay, so that means it is not actually permanently changing the employee table's name. And we can also temporarily rename the attribute name. All right, so for example, like select e.fn, e.ln, e.adr. so here actually what we are doing, we are actually changing the name of the attribute name. For example, like that, from department as D, like that. Okay, I'm actually changing different name. I'm actually changing the whole table, okay, as D with the attribute name information, and employee as E, and you can see I'm giving all different attribute name. Okay, so that now F name will be now known as Fn, mi will be known as this is for m in it, last name will be known as ln. We have to just maintain the order as the like the original table. All right, and here also we can use the renamed attribute. Okay, now the thing is that if our attribute name is different, in that case attribute name is different in more than one table, in two tables, in that case we can just write it like that, d number equals to dno. Okay, so that will not create any error because the names are different. But if the name is same, attribute name is same, that's what I'm saying, in that case we have to must specify the table name. Okay, either we are going to specify the exact table name or the alias name. All right, say for example, we have let's see, we have the department table, where the name of the department is name. Okay, and we have a project table where the name of the project is also name. Okay, and we need a query something like that, where we have to select the name of the project and the name of the department. Okay, we have to write something like that: select name comma name. Okay, now here also this is one case where our compiler will not be able to identify which name comes from which table. Okay, in that case also we have to explicitly specify the name of the table, okay, with the attribute name. So in that case, either we specify the explicit name of the table or we can create a alias. Okay, suppose the attribute name is name was used for both department and project. Okay, in that case, the query is for each project retrieve the project name and the name of its controlling department. So we have to write it like that: p.name comma d.name, and we are aliasing project with p, department as d, and the condition will look like p.dnum equals to d.dnumber. Okay, so p.name refers to the name attribute of project, d.name refers to the name attribute of department. So if the thing is that if you are going to use um, the attribute name in one query, and if they are same in multiple tables, okay, in that case we must explicitly specify from which table they are coming from. Okay, otherwise it will generate an error. All right, even if you are choosing only one name from this two tables, if we write even something like that: select name, let's say I want to know only the name of the department. Okay, from project and department, this will also generate an error. The reason is that my query compiler will try to find out which name we are talking about. He is going to use project and department, both table has name attribute. Okay, the compiler will not have actually any idea which name I am trying to select. So that will create a ambiguous situation, and that is going to generate an error. I have to explicitly specify which name I am trying to select, either from project or from department or both. So this is another query. This here also I need qualifying of attribute. Okay, so I need to qualify the attribute. Okay, and that's also an interesting example. So I have to find out each employee. For each employee, retrieve the employee's name and the name of her immediate supervisor. Okay, so here if I want to find out the employee and employee's name and the name of his supervisor, okay, if I look at the database schema, I know that employee table has actually all the information. So employee table has the name, which is F name, M init and L name. Employee table has supervisor SSN. Okay, now that means I need only one table, but there is a problem, because you can find out for each employee who is the what is the SSN of its supervisor, but what about the name of that supervisor? Okay, so I want you actually try to do that by yourself. Okay, and I will talk about the solution in the next segment.